During the last few weeks, especially the last 4 days, something unusual occurred in Iceland. At the nation's largest geyser field, known as Geyser, numerous vents suddenly became far more active. This was most pronounced at the Strokker geyser, which normally on a fairly regular 8 to 10 minute cycle briefly erupt for a few seconds and send a column of water 15 to 20 meters or 49 to 66 feet into the air. Well, all of a sudden its eruptions are occurring more frequently, are reaching heights of 30 meters, and are notably more violent as some eruptions are also ejecting amounts of small stones along with pieces of mud. Adding to this, at least 9 hot springs in the vicinity which were normally bubble at a fairly mild rate and decibel level are now violently bubbling, visibly involving more water, and creating what might sound like a roar. The authorities have confirmed that this is indeed happening, and from my observations it seems to be completely unprecedented during the observational history of this scenic geothermal field. While yes, specific geysers have individually become dormant for years to decades or suddenly become more active for a time, it has never occurred across multiple vents. Those of you who might remember the suspicious geothermal features the Just Icelandic YouTube channel spotted before eruptions of the Fagradalsfjall and Reykjanes volcanoes might immediately think that there must also similarly be an intrusion of magma involved here. And yet, ground deformation, which would almost certainly occur during any magmatic intrusion large enough to trigger these surface geothermal changes, has not been detected. Also, 3 other possible explanations, that being an increased rate of nearby earthquakes, a singular large nearby earthquake, or an unusual lack of or overabundance of precipitation have all not occurred. In other words, we don't know for sure why this is happening, only the fact that yes, it is indeed occurring. However, in my opinion, it is fairly safe to say that this increased geyser and hot spring activity is not related to volcanic activity. So, what might be causing this? Before I can answer this question, I need to first elaborate on why the Geyser field exists in the first place. For context, the Geyser geothermal field exists in the western volcanic zone of Iceland, which represents divergent plate boundary. As a result, not only is the natural geothermal gradient, the rate at which temperature increases with depth much higher than surrounding areas, but also molten rock occasionally intruded into these regions, forming clusters of volcanoes. One of these volcanoes is the now presumably extinct Geyser volcanic complex, which was the site of a series of volcanic eruptions between 740,000 and 476,000 years ago. These created two tuyas via a series of subglacial basaltic